Divya to start. Divya has a presentation. So she has a presentation to make. I'll request Amit to please, tone down the lights a little bit. So over to you, Divya.
Thank you, Shubham, and thanks, Emmanuel, for being kind enough to give me the immediate post-grad session, which means that I have the job of making sure you stay awake and don't fall into a post-grad stupor. So in that spirit, I'm going to ask all of you to indulge me for a few seconds by getting to your feet, if you please. We're going to do a small activity to get us started on this session. So on your feet, if you please. Instructions, I'm going to request you to follow those instructions. Okay? All right. So I'd like you, when I say 1, 2, 3, go, to fold your arms as quickly as you can. Fold your arms, right? So, ready? Some of you already have your arm folded, that's cheating. I can see you. Alright. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, go. Right. Okay. So everyone was there was a snap of arms across the room. Everyone pretty much ended up in that folded arm position. Stay in that position if you please. I'd like you to consciously take note of a few things. Note which arm is over. Yes, I'll be mindful. Thanks, Shimon. Good thought. I won't trip over the step. Which arm is on top? Right? And it's different for everybody. Just make a silent note to yourself. Make note of where each of your hands is ended up. Alright? Okay? Now, relax your arms, please. Get your arms back to your normal hand position. Now, I'm going to give you a second set of instructions. Again, when I say 1, 2, 3, go, please follow my instructions. This time, I want you to consciously fold your arms opposite to what you just did. The other way. So if your right arm was on top, left arm needs to be on top. If your hand was inside, it needs to be outside. Clear? Consciously do it. Okay, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. That took significantly longer, right? And does it feel wrong? Yes. Does it feel uncomfortable? Yes. Yeah? And it was harder? Right. Okay. Alright, cool. Thank you for indulging me. Let's resume our seats and what we're talking about in a sort of a very natural, organic fashion. One of the things that we're going to be talking about during this session is common sense that we all understand. I talk to founders every day. 9 out of 10 founders tell me they hate the process of pitching to investors. It doesn't feel natural. It feels wrong. It takes them out of their comfort zones. And it's something that they feel they're not naturally good at doing. Right? Now that little exercise that we did, some of you are actually behavioral scientists and experts at this field, you understand. And all of us understand at some level, it's common sense. When we're babies, we have very little motor control, right? We have to learn to do basic things like walking. We have to think about how to keep your balance, which foot to keep in front of the other, and so on and so forth. As we grow up, we learn to walk. So for most of us, with the exception of a couple of folks in the room, walking is a very natural process that you don't need to think about. You're used to it. It's become involuntary, right? When you're thinking of walking, you just need to reach the other end of the room. You're not thinking about, am I going to swing my arm this way, which foot goes in front of the other foot, and so on. It's become natural to you. It's become part of your involuntary reflexes. And that's part of our brains, because they're very new plastic instruments, the human brains, have made what used to be a voluntary effort an involuntary effort through practice, through repetition. Motor control, your brain knows how to do it. So it no longer happens in the conscious part of your mind. It happens in the unconscious part of your mind. To use Daniel Kahneman's phrase, it's moved from systems 2 thinking to systems 1 thinking, right? And I promise this is the last technical jargon I'll use today. So the same thing about pitching is the advice I give to founders. Like everything else in life, practice makes perfect. When you first pitch, it feels unnatural. When you're talking to customers, it feels good and natural because you're talking about a business that you love, about products that you love, about services that you love, about doing things. You started this business because at some level you love doing this business. So it feels natural to talk to customers, right? Because that's something you have in common. You're solving problems for them. They want their problem solved. You want to solve their problem, so those conversations feel good and natural. Can you get better at that? Of course you can. The more you talk to customers, the better you get at talking to customers. Pitching to investors is the same thing. The more you pitch to investors, the better you get at pitching to investors. So with that, I promise this is not going to be death by PowerPoint. And the reason I have slides up there is the other common thing that happens every time I talk to the founders, about this topic, about pitch fundamentals. Any guesses about which common request I get? The first question typically when I open up for Q&A. Any guesses? Can I get the slides? Is the question that I get. So Ananya, would you like to tell them what I told you in our email exchange when I sent you the slides, Arina and Ananya? I said these slides are freely shareable after the session. Okay, so you can all get the copy of the slides. Let's get that out of the way. But visual aids do help, and I'll go through them very quickly. You're going to have a copy of these slides, so don't worry about taking notes. So what am I going to talk about in terms of pitch deck fundamentals? It's exactly what I talk about in every one of these sessions, right? We'll talk about what needs to be in your pitch deck, your business plan, not your sales plan, your value proposition, and the numbers that matter. Those three elements. That's what needs to be in your pitch deck. And we'll talk about a few common pitch deck do's and don'ts. And that's really it. Plus a set of useful links so you can go download some templates if you need. Right? Okay, with that. And Emmanuel, thank you for being patient and indulging me and allowing me to do this. So first, you start with your business plan. Again, you're going to get the slide. Don't struggle to read the fine print. You often hear jargon about finding product market fit, right? What is finding product market fit? It's fundamentally discovering your product or service value proposition. What's unique and differentiated? What problems are you solving? It's about identifying your customer target market. Who are you going to sell it to? Who's going to pay you money for your product or service? And who else is selling to your customer market to solve this particular problem? Right? That's your competition. Your product market fit, when finding your product market fit, is some combination of these three things. Clear? I hope everyone just, there are many ways to arrive at product market fit, but that's what the steps are to get there. In addition to your product market fit, you do need to talk about your business and how you're going to make money, how much you'll grow, how much profit you'll make, how soon you'll get there, and so on and so forth. What's your execution plan to get there? That's all that really needs to be in your pitch deck. The other thing that I want to say about a pitch deck is, I know it's easy to kind of stand up here on a stage. You're under pressure, you think it's an elevator pitch, you have 2 minutes. You think, this is an opportunity for me to monologue about my business. That is a mistake. Even when it's only you speaking to the audience, at any point of time, the best pitches are dialogues with your audience. You're looking to connect with your audience. You're looking to find something in common that they can relate to. So even when you are pitching an elevator pitch, you're always looking for that connect. The dialogue doesn't have to be verbal, but you can sense feedback. We're all human beings. We know how to read cues from the room. You can sense feedback, right? So remember that. Elements of a pitch deck. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And every time you do it, seek dialogue, seek feedback. It's not just you conveying information, it's the other party receiving information, and you're trying to sense how much of your message they've actually absorbed. What is the goal of an elevator pitch? Is it, I think Sushma was the one who made the point excellently at the panel earlier about Shark Tank having created a lot of curiosity about what the VC process looks like. Shark Tank has done one good thing. It's really popularized this culture of seeking investment from entrepreneurs. That's great. But it's also kind of made it look like that's how it works in real life. You make a pitch, and someone gives you a yes/no decision right away at the meeting. Here's the bad news, it doesn't work like that. And even in Shark Tank, it doesn't work like that. I'm sure you've all seen the press coverage that there's a process which follows, people go through due diligence, sometimes the due diligence process doesn't work, the negotiation falls apart, the deal doesn't happen. So be prepared. for the process to be a bit longer than that. So the purpose of a pitch, your initial pitch, is always only one thing. To get the person listening to you, who's capable of investing money, to be interested enough to have a follow-up conversation. That's your purpose. It's not about, throwing everything at the kitchen sink into your presentation so they know everything possible about your business. The best pitch decks make us curious to know more about you, about your business, and why we should look at investing in you. That's it. I'm including all of this just as reference material. I don't think these terms need that much explanation, but there are a number of very seasoned both entrepreneurs and investors in the room. We're happy to have a follow-up conversation to discuss any of these elements at a later date, or feel free to reach out to us. One final note before I kind of close, which is what are the numbers that you need to include? This is very specific. I know a number of you are social enterprises and not really VC targets. So, this doesn't really apply to social enterprises. If you are a commercial venture looking for alternate venture, private equity or angel investment, this applies to you. The numbers that matter that we're all looking for, we're looking for the basics. P&L, balance sheet, yes. But we're looking for cash flow. We're also looking for insight into why those numbers work. Other people have mentioned things like, long-term value and customer acquisition cost, all of that stuff matters. Important metrics do matter. And those are all the numbers you need to include in your pitch deck. Nothing extraneous, but also nothing less, right? And keep it simple and easy to understand in your deck. This is not don't include a copy paste from an Excel spreadsheet for God's sake. Include the headlines. There are some very, it's not the first time people have made the comparison to VCs being some sort of mythological animal. After all, there's a lot of talk. We seem to be obsessed with unicorns and dragons and things that come out of legendariums. But the reality is that we're human beings. Like most other human beings, our attention spans are limited. So if you want to spark our curiosity, get our interest, give us the headlines. Don't give us a deep dive in the deck. It's not easy to read, and most of us require vision enhancement. Like me, you can see I'm heavily myopic. So if you want me to stare at a sort of an embedded Excel sheet in your PowerPoint, I'm sorry, you've lost me right there. And what's next? And how do you plan to execute? That's it. Those are the elements of your pitch deck. I'm happy to hand over to Emmanuel to continue the conversation, and we'll be very happy to take questions from you going on. Thank you very much. And as I said, the slides will be shared.
Speak at forums like this all the time, but today I'm a pretty nervous person standing here because I'm speaking to a group of entrepreneurs who advanced in their journey way beyond the typical startups that we get to interact with. So you're way ahead as a group in the journey of entrepreneurship as compared to the crowds that we speak to, or the gyan, the knowledge that we share. Two facts I think we need to understand. Globally and in India, approximately 5% of startups get funded. And this statistics is not going to change. So it's a reality that if you're looking for equity funding, you need to be that 5%, or you may be that 95 never would see equity funding. The other reality of India today is there's so much of money chasing good businesses, and there aren't enough good businesses to fund. That's the reality of India today. And almost everybody, it's so much easier to become a fund than to be an entrepreneur today. The entrepreneurial journey is so tough and so difficult. It's much easier for someone like us to raise a fund and then say, we are going to invest into you. So these are the challenges that face the reality today. And when we talk about pitch decks, let me talk about pitch decks. Unless it is a virtual show, unless we are interacting virtually, where when the Zoom call commences, you become a stamp on the side and the PPT shows up, blows up, we in a physical session do not see the PPT at all. We focus on the entrepreneur. So we're trying to understand who is this entrepreneur, what drives them to do what they do, how much of depth do they have an understanding of the business they're trying to do? Do they have the stamina and the capacity to take that journey? So these are the core questions that we keep asking as we interact with entrepreneurs. The PPT is an incidental methodology to present your or communicate what you want to say. But it's you that we're looking at and deciding whether it's worth having a second conversation beyond the pitch that you give to us. And the small signals that will give you an indication of whether you've got the attention of the investor would be simple things like in the first 2 to 3 minutes, is he looking at you or is he looking at his telephone? If he's distracted by his phone, you've lost him or her. That's it. And that's going to be the story. So, and the other side is, this is a cat and mouse game. You want to present the best side of you. We want to see the worst side of you. What's the worst that we are going to look at? Because this is a 4-year, 5-year journey that we're going to take together. Can we sustain that journey? Is the chemistry going to work between the two of us? These are the questions we keep asking as we go through this kind of an interaction as an investor and a startup that is picking up this journey. And the core question again is capital the key constraint that is holding up your business? Is capital the constraining factor that is stopping you from going 10x? Most often, many times, it is not. There's no clarity about what you want to do. You're not sure what is the market, and you've already come to the investor asking for money. So unless you have that clarity, don't go to the investor and face the investor until you're sure about this. What is the solution you have? What is the market? How are you going to do it? Where is your team? Unless all these are answered, because again, investors make up their mind in the first 5 minutes. And unfortunately, they don't go back to reassessing most of the time. So they'll say, okay, you said this is the person, do you want to meet him or her? They'll say, I met him or her somewhere at an event and we were not impressed. Unfortunately, there's no second chance. So when you have that opportunity, you have to make the best of it. So the capacity to be in readiness is an important thing. The other thing is, whom do you pitch to? Whom do you go and meet as an investor? I think the background check of who the investor is, what his interests are, where has he invested, are very critical factors that you need to prepare yourself before undertaking this interaction with an investor. The core again for us, which we love when we meet entrepreneurs, is the excitement they show about this journey and say, this is the journey we are on to. If you're interested, join us. So you should not go and approach a funder as if you don't give the money, I'm going to be nowhere. The ability for you to confidently say that I'm on this journey which is exciting. If you miss it, you'll miss something big. So if you can get that message across, you made it. That is where I think every investor worries about what is called FOMO again. Did I get the first chance to invest into this company and did I miss that opportunity? So 2 years down the line, if you see something big happen and we missed that opportunity, it's a big regret for us. So that is why we all the time, keep meeting so many, realizing that the earlier we get into a business, the more will be the upside that we can make. So how early can we get into this business? The other thing again, as Caspian, we have an equity fund, a very small equity fund focused in agriculture, but we have a very large debt fund. So really we also, entrepreneurs have to assess, is equity the only way to growth? So growth can come also from other than equity. The key points again which you need to note is, if your business is profitable, if your business is scalable, and if your cash flows are predictable, that could be a good option to grow your business. It could be a very good option to grow your business. Predictability of cash flows is also a very important thing. You deal with the government, you get a big project, you never know when you'll get your cash. It's not a fundable project. So it's necessary for you to think that equity is not just the only way to grow businesses. Now looking at not-for-profits, again, social enterprises, are they fundable? We have a portfolio of social enterprises in our own portfolio, which are Section 8 kind of companies. So we don't fund cooperatives or trusts and others. But typically, let me give you an example. A not-for-profit working in skilling or working in healthcare, funded by very reputed corporates under CSR. The corporates, milk the CSR to the last day. They will give you the money on the 31st of March, but you need to do the business for the rest of the year, from the beginning of the year. That is where debt works. So if we know who's that funder out there who's going to fund you, but you are not having the cash to do the business through this year, those are the kind of businesses that we as Caspian find interesting to fund. Ultimately, another thing that I would say is, we don't look at entrepreneurs who approach us with a business lens. So we as an institution believe that building businesses appropriate for India is not that every one of them is capable of being funded by us. So we have ongoing conversations, talk to entrepreneurs, engage with them. So most of the time, the business plan or the pitch is not ready, and we appreciate that. So we sit down, understand, together prepare that business plan. Not even a business plan, I think. If we understand the business, we fund that business. The business plan can be worked out together also. So that is how it is. It's not necessary to have a glossy or a ready-made thing. We can sit down together, have a conversation, get an understanding of what your business is, what you're trying to do, and fund it. So this basically is a story of what we do. I am on a few other NBFCs we fund. I'm on a few incubators which fund early stage businesses. So in multiple ways we evaluate businesses. Certainly we don't make the right calls every time, but the more interaction we do, the more we understand what is the potentially successful business. And some of the core things that, again, my last words is, for an early stage business, what we look at is the ability to separate your personal from your business. Very critical thing. You don't bill your Singapore trip into the company's account. Those are the things. Correlation between your business and your numbers. If we see your GST statement and we see your bank statement, do these two talk to each other? If not, then I think you're not investable. Compliance to the laws of the land. Systems and processes. Governance. These are fundamental. We can say that I'm too small and I'll take care of these when I grow a little bigger. It never happens. So therefore, if you look at and set these fundamentals right at the beginning, you will be successful entrepreneurs. Most of you here are. And I think as I close, I'll say that both from an equity and a debt side, we would love to have conversations with any of you who think that capital is constraining your growth, nothing else. If capital is really holding up your growth, speak to us once. Thank you.
Hari. What you said is very relevant, and we came to know so many things. The information was really good. But I've heard that investors also look into the person who is carrying the business, when they invest in something. The person who is pitching, the founder. So how much would you give as percentage to the founder when you are investing in the business?
But what we look at in a founder is A, their passion, which most of the time is present. B, the capacity to attract talent. Many times we find founders who are so obsessed with themselves that they really aren't able to get together a quality team of people, which is essential to grow businesses. Third is to be able to build a team which is all-rounded, because no individual has all the capacities. So the account side, the commercial side, the fundraise, each of these learnability is the ability to take feedback, which is again a poor quality. Many times entrepreneurs think they know everything. They will say yes to everything till they take your money. After that, they don't even look at you. So is that quality there in you? These are some things we look at which are very subtle, but through conversations. Then we look at, the distraction again. Is this person a serial entrepreneur? So he will go from one to the other to the third without having built this completely. That's a scare for us because we're investing for 5 to 7 years to build a business. So to excessively creative people who don't have that, concentration on running a business are difficult people to deal with. The other thing we look at is their personal life. We've seen this, he's going through a troubled marriage, something else, which is going to take away his attention from business. We do a very serious background check on that also.
Ananya, I'm looking at you to just do a time check in terms of doing that. I just wanted to add a little bit and also wanted to check with you if we can take any more questions. Alright, so let me add a few, everything that Emmanuel said absolutely true, but great insightful question. I'll say 3 things. The first thing is exactly as Emmanuel says, when we look at equity, not at debt investments, we look at the founding team and we look at the team, because we've often heard that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a startup. The village that you build to raise that startup matters. We do take a very hard look at that and your ability to build that and your vision for what kind of team you're going to build and so on. So that is something we look at. The second thing I will look at is that again, you've heard from a couple of times during the day, I think Lisa talked about co-production, right? And I think it was Tarim possibly mentioned design thinking during her presentation. One of the key principles of design thinking is co-creation. What I say to founders is when we look at founders, we want to understand how much of your product or service or solution has been co-created with the people it was designed to solve problems for. Did you really work with your customers and other stakeholders to build the product? That is something that we look at because it does, again, the ability to actually attract and retain customers fundamentally comes from how well you build this relationship with customers and then stick with them. So that's the second aspect of a founder's approach that we take a very close look at. And finally, I'll say, even more than founders, as equity investors, what we're really looking for is the customer side of things. Who exactly is going to be willing to pay you money and pick your products and solutions over everybody else's products and solutions? And I'm going to consistently keep paying you money for this. So in addition to founders, those are the 2 things we look at very, very hard as investors. your customers and your internal team. So don't forget that, we are trying to build a relationship exactly as Emmanuel said, because we know when we get into this relationship with you, we're going to be on your cap table for 5 years, 10 years, maybe 15 years, who knows how long. So it's a long-term relationship we're also trying to build. And I'm going to revisit what Sushma said again, because that was very good advice. We do due diligence, you should do due diligence on us. So that's the last thought. I will leave it with you.
Point here is like, since we're building this private equity fund, venture fund, we're talking about all these things, kind of a thing. What I'm noticing is like, say there is already a huge divide between South India and our part in terms of funding, in terms of entrepreneurs. So like, my only this thing is like, can we not also like have a sort of a forum where we can also tell the government of India or our own state governments so that we can increase the size of fund for this part also. So tomorrow there might be a situation where like this zone, this particular area might be left out in the sense that whatever number of unicorns we are having in this country, tomorrow we may have a bit less percentage of people coming from this side of the. Today I'm really glad that we are having this kind of discussion, but I'm like we need to have a lot of kind of this kind of discussion should be more in numbers in future also, and but what I'm saying is that there is already regional imbalance that is happening, and then for our side, say for our northeast or for Assam, I think Canada is the main point where we look into as in terms of leadership. So my only thing is that like as a policy maker, as an academician, as an this NGO and all this kind of associations, we must also we must also get government on our side so that we can increase the pie of this investment fund also for this part of the thing.
You might take the first shot at this.
Yeah, like
right.
This is just a solution only.
Right. So I think you made a very important point. Sorry, I missed your name. I think we just narrowly missed meeting each other before. Right. Okay. So you're making a very important point, and I think one of the amazing things from this forum that came out is, look, you're exactly right. This whole triangle of Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar working together effectively is what creates sustainable development. And you're absolutely right that none of these things, and we are part of the Bazaar part of things, right? The private capital part of things. And like has been pointed out before, we are not the only source of funding, nor should we be. We have one source of funding for specific kinds of businesses, for specific kinds of purposes. You're exactly right, and I think the answer is to create more forums for dialogue. I do agree with you, and thank you for bringing up the point. The imbalance in terms of capital access to certain parts of the country is a problem for all of us, and we need to solve it as a country. I don't think, unfortunately, we're going to be able to solve it at this, but part of the answer is having forums like this, where we discuss these issues, where we create awareness and we talk to the most stakeholders in the ecosystem. As Dr. Emmanuel.
Okay, so we've just won a bid for managing a 250 crore Assam fund under the RES Society. So for the northeast, at least for Assam, there is good opportunity.